Welcome to Intuitive Transformations with your host, Sylvia Henderson, and discover tools, wisdom, and inspiration that will empower you to transform your life. Sylvia is an intuitive life coach and energy healer with a growing practice that is focused on empowering others to be more of who they want to be. For the next hour, join Sylvia and explore and unravel anything in the way of you creating the life that you would love to live on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Intuitive Transformations radio show, where you will find tools you can use to change and transform your life. I'm Sylvia Henderson, your host, and as you just heard, I'm an energy healer and I'm an intuitive life coach. And if you would like to know more about me and the transformational work that I do, please be sure to visit my website at intuitivetransformations.net after the show is over. And actually, there's another reason that you may want to check out my website, because 2 weeks ago I had Emmanuel Dager on my show to talk about prosperity and the energy of money. Well, Emmanuel, being the very generous personality that he is, sent me an entire box of his brand new book, Easy Breezy Prosperity, for me to share with my Intuitive Transformations listeners. So I would like to gift some very lucky listeners with the gift of Emmanuel's book. But to make it fair, I'm going to hold a weekly drawing, and I'm only going to give 1 or 2 books away every week, just until the last week of February. If you'd like to win a copy of Easy Breezy Prosperity, then here's what you need to do. There's just a few action steps. So that's the other reason you want to visit my website, because it all takes place there. So after the show, and I do mean after the show, when you visit my website, intuitivetransformations.net, click on the contact button at the top of the website and complete that form with your name and your mailing address. That's really important because I need to know where to send the book. And then just submit that form. And this is something that you're going to want to do every week if you want to enter every week to win. So if you didn't win this week and you want to enter again, you'll have to do this again after my next show next Sunday. Also, there is just one more thing that you're going to have to do. After you've submitted the contact form, I want you to go to the bottom of my website, to the footer, and find that little F in a circle. That's the Facebook icon. Click on that and like my Facebook page, because on Wednesday of every week following my live Sunday shows, that's where I'm going to announce the winner, or the winners if I give away more than one book, for the previous week, okay? So just remember those 2 steps. First, fill out the contact me form, then like my Facebook page, and you'll have to do both of those if you want to be considered a valid entry. Of course, you only have to like my Facebook page one time, but you'll want to submit a contact form every week if you want to re-enter. And then that way, you may be the fortunate one that's blessed with a copy of Easy Breezy Prosperity finding its way to your mailbox. So here we are, everyone, in 2016. And I don't know about you, but I really feel strongly that the stage is set for it to be a year of lots of big changes and transformations to occur, especially, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but I have really noticed that more and more people are beginning to realize and recognize the divinity that we all hold within us. Tonight, I have an amazing gentleman joining me, and I feel like I've been living a little bit underneath a rock because I had not yet heard of Paul Selig until his latest book, the Book of Mastery, magically appeared at my doorstep. Because last month I was expecting to receive just one book from a publisher in preparation for an upcoming show that I did, but I ended up receiving a box of several books, and one of those books was the Book of Mastery. And I remember that night that I was on my way out and it was dark, and I noticed this Amazon book box at my garage door. So I put the box in my back seat and I went to my destination, and I had time waiting for my appointment to open the box. And the first book I noticed was the Book of Mastery. And I pulled it out, and I kid you not, literally everything within me knowingly knew that I had to read this book. It was if it almost just vibrated in my hands before I even turned the pages and opened the cover. And as I started to read the book, literally in my car in the dark with the night light, the street light shining down, it was as if the cells in my body were just dancing with so much joy and gratitude because the truth of every word just resonated so profoundly within me. And the very next day, I was sending an email to that publisher asking if I could please, please, please have Paul Selig on my show. And I am so happy to announce that Paul is here with us today. But before I bring him on, I want to tell you all a little bit about him. In his breakthrough works of channeled literature, being I Am the Word, the Book of Love and Creation, and the Book of Knowing and Worth, author and medium Paul Selig recorded an extraordinary program for personal and planetary evolution. Paul received his master's degree from Yale and had a spiritual experience in 1987 that left him clairvoyant. As a way to gain a context for what he was beginning to experience, he studied a form of energy healing working at Marion Williamson's Manhattan Center for Living and in his own private practice. In the process, he began to hear from his clients, and much of Selig's works now is as a clairvoyant, channel, and an empath. Paul has led channeled energy groups for many years. He is the subject of the short documentary film Paul and the Word, and is featured on the A&E biography channel series The Unexplained. His numerous radio appearances include Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. His recent and upcoming workshops include the Caprillo Center in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York, and the Esalen Institute in Big Sur, California. Also a noted playwright and educator, Paul serves on the faculty of NYU and directs the MFA in Creative Writing program at Goddard College. He lives in New York City, where he maintains a private practice as an intuitive. And Paul Selig, thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I am absolutely thrilled because, as I mentioned before, just holding your book in my hand, I mean, it was, and it's funny because this box came in right before Christmas, so I felt like a little girl getting a Christmas gift, but it was amazing. It really was. My first introduction to channeled text was the Course in Miracles, A Course in Miracles, and going through the lessons and reading through that text at a time in my life when I really needed to hear that kind of teaching. And your book is very different, but also has the same flavor to it. Mm-hmm. So can you tell everyone listening a little bit about who you are and how this came to be? I know that you had a spiritual experience in 1987, and shortly after that, or at that moment, you became a clairvoyant. What was that all about?
Well, if this isn't anything I went looking for, and I should say that, I'm in some ways, I suppose, an unlikely candidate for this work. I was somebody who didn't believe in this stuff. But in 1987, I was about a year out of graduate school. I hit a real wall in my life, and I began praying, frankly, for the first time in my life, even though I've been raised to believe that, that was for stupid people. We were kind of atheists in my household, and a spiritual life wasn't something that I knew that one could have. But I found myself asking for something. And anyway, I got a response. And about 3 months later, I went up to my roof on the evening of this event that people were calling the harmonic convergence. And people were telling me, people are going to be waking up. And I thought that sounded just great. And I'd gone from a world where there was no God or spirit or whatever you wanted to call it, higher power, to one where there was. And I found myself willing to believe that that was even possible, that I could be woken up. And I ended up having an experience of energy that people later said sounded like a spontaneous Kundalini awakening or soul awakening or Shaktipa. There's a lot of names for these things. I don't know that they matter. For me, it may well have been that I was hyperventilating. I really don't know, but there was energy moving through my whole body and out through the top of my head. And I started seeing little lights around people. So, my world began to change. And I don't think that experience singles me out in any way, shape, or form. I think I was primed for it in some way, psychologically, emotionally, and I suppose spiritually. But for somebody who grew up without believing in stuff, to have an experience that was somehow physical was very important to me because I could trust something that I felt. And, much of the work that I do now in my groups, the energy comes through and it's incredibly tangible. People can feel it. And I like that because it puts people in their own knowing and not giving me their authority because, frankly, I don't want it.
Well, I love that you point that out, that it gave you something tangible that made it very real for you because so much of spirituality is etheric and not tangible. And it's more of a, standing out on a limb and just believing.
Yes, I think that that's true. But I also think that there's a knowing that comes and can come that can inform our experience of the material realm. And I think that we have to become open to the possibility of those things too. I do a lot of groups around the country, and I like the fact that people can feel the energy. You talked about your experience with the books and your body vibrating, and it's what the guides have said about the books is that they're energetic transmissions that work on the reader. So, people are having these experiences again. But I agree, we're asked to believe in the unknown and to have faith, and I'm all for that. For somebody like me who was a New York City atheist, I needed something a little more, and I guess I got the boot in the butt that I needed.
Well, hold that thought, Paul. We're going to go into a break, and when we return, we're going to continue this conversation.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of the Inspired Parenting radio show, where every week we bring you empowering information from the diverse fields of conscious parenting, education, neuroscience, consciousness, health, and metaphysics to support you in nurturing the best in your children. So if you're interested in understanding what shapes your children's minds, spirits, and hearts, join me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and prepare to be inspired.
Meet me in the marvelous St. Martin for an evolution into self-love and soulful living. Hi, I'm Bernadette Davies, founder of Agape Holistic Retreat in St. Martin and around the globe. We're an all-inclusive retreat in St. Martin and private retreats and around the globe. It's magical. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Attunement, enhancement, alignment. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Meet you in St. Martin.
The name is Bond. James Bond.
No, the name is Joe. The Joe Show. And we are returning back for our 9th season here on OMTimes Radio. So tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on OMTimes.com/mobile. You can take us wherever you go. Yeah!
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Sylvia Henderson on Intuitive Transformations radio show, and I have with me my special guest, Paul Selig. And before we went into the break, Paul was explaining he was sharing his experience and how he had this Kundalini tangible physical sensation that then opened up his awareness to being clairvoyant, and how people who have read his book and have listened to him channel either on live stream or in the workshops have also had a physical tangible experience. And I have to tell you, Paul, that is something that I did find fascinatingly unique, because I'm very sensitive to energy myself, but it was just I've listened to your live stream a couple of times, and just listening to the vibration that comes through you as you are channeling your guides, it's very profound. And then reading the words in the book and just even saying out loud some of the things that are suggested within its pages, I can feel shifts happening within me. And I found that really, and it is very nice to have that physical reinforcement. So I found that really fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Well, the guides that I work with say that they work with language that's encoded. And so these are attunements. These are vibrational attunements. I mean, I don't think people have to have a physical experience, and I don't recommend it necessarily. What I think it did for me, and it does for some people, is it circumvents the skepticism or the resistance. I came from a world where I needed to feel it, see it, taste it, touch it, all those things if I was going to defer my reality in some way. And so, that's how I get worked with, and that's some of the experience that people seem to have. But I think it's just the way that the guides are working, or the way the texts are operating. They say that the books are all channeled. I don't write them. They're just the transcripts of the channeling sessions, and they're essentially completely unedited. They say that the book operates on two levels: the words on the page, which are providing an intellectual context for the reader, and the energy that informs them, which they say is the real book.
Well, I do have another question for you in terms of this transition from being in academia at the level that you were, and also coming from a home where the mindset was more about, atheist, not really believing in a form of God. I too came from a very different background than where I am now spiritually. I raised Catholic, very strong fundamentalist Christian background. And, even though I have my own radio show on OMTimes Radio, The Voice of Consciousness, I still sometimes struggle with this coming out of the metaphysical closet in all the settings. And so how hard was that for you, and how were you able to make that complete transition within yourself, where you knew that you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is who you are, and that this is your truth, and where you really feel comfortable standing?
I think that's ongoing for me. The bio that you had for me, I guess that the publishers provided, is a little outdated. I actually left New York University and Goddard College, both of them in the last few months, to do this work full time. And that was a real struggle for me to leave those jobs, because I really loved them both for different reasons. I loved being a classroom teacher. I liked, running a graduate program at an institution that I sort of believed in. Those were very good things. But what happened with me is that this part of my life began to rise up and demand attention. I was in the closet with it, especially at NYU, specifically at NYU for many years, because it's not what I was there for. I wasn't being paid to be a psychic. And I think what happened finally is that my work got known. When the first book was published, I was forced forward. I had a name. I had a website at that point, that I'd had not for a very long time, because I had a practice as a psychic without my name on it. I didn't want anybody to find my name. So the name was the business, and, there was no picture of me. And I really didn't want you to know who I was. And the website was really all in case you knew somebody. It was like a speakeasy. You had half the password to get in, get an appointment with me. And after the first book came out and I began to get public with the work, I realized that I was acting in fear, and it was my fear of what people thought of me or of this. And, I've been doing this work in one form or another now for over 20 years, much more than that, actually. But it took me a while to claim it. I'm not one of these people that, took a class and then put a shingle up the next day and decided that this was what I was going to do. I did this quietly. I had a group that met in my apartment for maybe 18 years once a week. My job was to put up the folding chairs. People would leave 10 or 20 bucks in a basket. And that was it. And that's how I developed and trained. And I feel that when it was time, the guides that I work with said, okay, here we go. And they've not let up at all. I'm channeling an insane amount, I think. I'm really showing up for this. So the interesting thing was, for the most part, I found that people didn't care. Now, granted, my work in academia was in the arts, which made it easier. Mm-hmm. And those that did care, I didn't care that much about them, truthfully. You get a lot of good lessons through this about not caring so much about what other people think of you. And my guides are very big on a few things, and of the teachings that I'm able to follow well, one of the biggest ones is not taking actions based in fear. And so for me to keep hiding under a rock was fear-based. And for me to say, okay, this is what I'm doing. You don't have to agree with it or like it. I know it's out there more than anybody. And I'm skeptical as well. I'm somebody that didn't even really believe in channeling all that much. This is just what happened. And I'm showing up for a life in a way that is maybe a little novel, but at least I'm doing it willingly, So that's what I think. I mean, it's an interesting thing, and I think those people who come from fundamentalist backgrounds are often very challenged by this, and I have great admiration for people who go on their own path. I had a different background, which was, we didn't believe in anything. So I had some prejudice, against people who prayed, and I thought that was simple, when I was a child. But, it left me without certain baggage as well that I'm very grateful for. I was new to this. I was brand new and frankly willing at the time that it started to open up to me.
So let's talk about how it started to really open up to you, because we first talked about this Kundalini kind of sensation that was going through your body. But how did you move from that into I'm now channeling?
Well, I was volunteering at the Manhattan Center in New York. I got a call right after I'd studied a form of energy healing, I got a call right away to come and volunteer. And it was the height of the AIDS epidemic in New York. My friends were sick and dying. It was an awful, scary time. And it was something that I could do. And I found that when I had my hands on people, I started to hear things for them. So and as what I was hearing was getting validated again and again and again, I began to trust the reception. And initially, it was like a word or a fragment of a phrase would sort of, poke through all of the, the static in my head, my own inner dialogue, which was always going on, would be broken by a word that I would not be thinking of or would not choose to think of. If I had my hands on you and I heard the name Alfred out of the blue, I learned to say, who's Alfred? And you'd say my father, my husband, my son, whatever. Mm-hmm. And, so it was through the constant affirmation I began to trust that. And I also started to open up as a physical empath, or as a clairsentient. I started to be able to feel in my own body what was going on with other people. And in my practice now, I do that primarily as an emotional empath. I can step into somebody at a distance and I'll often start to resemble them, which is interesting. So if you ask about your brother, I can step into your brother, I'll take on his mannerisms, and I'll tell you what I hear, and I'll feel what's going on. The channeling began in my small group right away, but it came in a very abbreviated form. I was hearing instructions to receive energy. And it went on like this for many years, and it wasn't until I think maybe 2008 that I began lecturing in channel without even realizing that I was doing it. I just knew that I was talking a whole lot more. I had quit smoking right around that time, and I think that's what really opened up my whole system at a whole other level. Gifts that I'd had or abilities that I'd had when I was in my early 30s. I don't like the word gifts. That had been sort of static or dormant or hadn't really gone anywhere, suddenly were wildly awake and alive, and that's when the guide started to teach through me. It was just, and once it started, and I was willing to show up at that level, it has not stopped at all.
So in a lot of your a lot of the pages, as you said, this is all channeled and it's unedited. And there are times when the guides will refer to you and they say, well, Paul is arguing with us now, or Paul is not sure he wants to say this. And even in your live stream conversations that the guides share with those who are listening, that's come up as well, where there is you, the personality, Paul, and yet there are these guides that are speaking through you, and it's like you're going, well, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to. What's going on there in that exchange? Is it that you're getting into your head too much, or you're concerned about? Okay.
I'd say getting into my head's the wrong way to put it, but I'm a conscious channel. I'm hearing what's coming through, although not fully. But if a concept starts coming through or teaching starts coming through that I have questions about, I've been known to interrupt. So it's some resistance. And also it's because I feel a piece of me feels somewhat accountable as the one rendering the teachings. I'm being used. I'm the radio that the broadcast is playing through.
That makes perfect sense. So we're going to go to a break, everyone. We'll be back in just a few moments. And when we return, we'll continue this conversation about the Book of Mastery with Paul Selig. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Meet me in the marvelous St. Martin for an evolution into self-love and soulful living. Hi, I'm Bernadette Davies, founder of Agape Holistic Retreat in St. Martin and around the globe. We're an all-inclusive retreat in St. Martin and private retreats and around the globe. It's magical. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Attunement, enhancement, alignment. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Meet you in St. Martin.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
I'm back, and you're listening to Intuitive Transformations Radio, and I have with me Paul Selig, and we are talking about his latest channel text, which is titled The Book of Mastery. And Paul, can you please share with those listening who your guides are and why the Book of Mastery now? Why was 2016 the important time for this to be released? Because this is book number 1 in what will be a trilogy, correct?
That's what they say. They say it's the first book of a trilogy. They say that the first 3 books were foundational for where they're going now with their teaching. Mm-hmm. They've never said anything about 2016 being important. They're not very big on dates. They say we get very attached to dates and we like our calendars and our schedules, but that's not what I'm hearing from them.
Okay.
I do understand that there is perhaps some urgency in our waking up, that we have great availability to this now. And also, we're living in a world where we've created the means to destroy ourselves, if we so choose. I don't get that that's going to happen. But the guides do say that we have, they say that we're at a time of reckoning, and they say that a time of reckoning, or any reckoning, is a facing of oneself and one's creations. Mm. This is happening individually and globally, and, everybody's in it. So that's what they talk about the time. I don't recall the first part of the question.
Who are they?
They're teachers. They say that they're teachers. I call them the guides because my ex used to say, ask the guides this, ask the guides that. That's how they ended up being called the guides. Mm-hmm. They've never complained about it. They've used, in the new book, which surprised me, they spoke the name that I've heard consistently over the years, which is the name Melchizedek. Which is a priesthood. It's a level of consciousness, and Christ consciousness is what they've always said that they're coming from. So that's how they've identified. But they're not all that big on names, and my take on that is that we're big on names because mm-hmm. we like to, the ego likes to be able to sort of claim things and label them and decide what they mean by what somebody else has said that they mean sometime in the past. My strong feeling about their teaching is, truth is truth, mm-hmm. And, can come from many sources. This just happens to be the source that's operating through me.
And I like how you just spoke about truth is truth, because there's something that they ask us to repeat several times within the pages of the Book of Mastery, and that is, I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve, I am here, I am here, I am here. Can you talk a little bit about your interpretation of what that means?
Sure. I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve. The guides say these are all claims of truth. Now, the small self or the personality self may not know any of this stuff, but the guides would say that the true self or the divine self does. So it's the divine self or the true self as you speaking that language. I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve. And they would probably break that down to be, I know who I am as an aspect of the Creator in form. I know what I am in this incarnation, in this life that I'm living. And I know how I serve, they say always. How we serve is how we're most fully expressed as our true selves. And that's always the nature of our true service, to be expressed as the divine self. So they've called that a claim of incarnation, and they say when you work with that language, you're actually calling yourself into present time, and people can often feel the energy come through. It's very vertical energy. It sort of lands in the body. People's, when I do this in groups, people say that their hands and their feet get hot, and that's kind of what I feel too. I am here, I am here, I am here is a claim that's specific to the Book of Mastery, and it's also an attunement that they do in workshops, but the books themselves are the attunement, so you don't need me to be there. But I am here, again, is the claim of the divine self, the true self, announcing itself in its purview as who and what you are. So, it's never been about Paul becoming his divine self, or Paul being his higher self. I think that's a mistake in some New Age teachings, that we're going to become our ascended self. I think the truth of the matter is the guides that I work with would say it is the divine self becomes you. The true self becomes you. Because as long as it's the small self who's deciding this, it's like I'm going to be holy on Tuesday because it's the right day to be holy. You know what I mean? It's still born in ego or personality or, whim.
That conditioned self.
Exactly right, yes.
So thank you for clarifying that. And when they speak about the kingdom, what exactly do they mean by that?
Well, they have a very specific definition of it, and they say that the kingdom is the awareness of the divine in all manifestation. So it's the presence of God or whatever you want to call God. They don't, I don't think they care. But it's the awareness of the divine in all you see before you. They say that we believe that we're separate from our landscapes, and we're not. They say we're participating in our landscape as the perceiver of them. And they say, the one who sees the kingdom is the one who sees with the eyes of the divine self. And that's, again, a level of, you can call it mastery if you like, but it's a level of attunement or a level of agreement to see as the true self. So you see, the true self, the guides would say, isn't operating in fear, isn't operating in judgment, doesn't have an agenda. All the stuff that I walk around with as the small self, my divine self, they would say, is not operating at that level. So the divine self is the one who has the eyes with which to see. And they say it's through that witnessing you're actually claiming the kingdom into manifestation. They've said again and again and again that the kingdom is here already. It's a level of consciousness. And, you can align to it. It's always been present. It always will be. And in doing so, you're really supporting, your whole world in transformation.
I like how they say that the kingdom is the awareness that the divine is in all manifestations. And it really is, we live in a universe that the illusion of separation is extremely compelling.
You bet.
And divisiveness right now here in the United States is probably as profoundly being expressed as it has in some time that I can remember, at least.
Yeah.
And so when you have this very compelling physical manifestations of separation, judgment of what's good, what's right, what's wrong, and all of that going on, wow, those are big shoes to be able to stand in, to sit there and to look at that, not necessarily lovingly, but just without the judgment of anything about it.
Well, it goes, I think my sense is the guides would go back to who's looking, what aspect of you is perceiving. They say the small self can't enter that level of consciousness. It's simply not possible. It exists there. Do you know what I mean? But the divine self or the true self can. So all of their books, really, from the very first one, I Am the Word, which was the first book, they say that the manifestation, and they use the word Christ, and their definition of Christ is the aspect of the Creator that can be realized in material form, as in through everyone, the truth of who and what we are, is seeking, that the realization of this is the action of their work, to bring us home in a way to who and what we truly are, to claim our own divine inheritance. This is what they say. I'm not the teacher. I can be the spokesperson. They call me the ambassador of the teaching. Once recently, that's the first I heard, but I liked it because it took me off the hook a bit. I can try to interpret. But I feel that, we have choices here. And what the guides really are working towards now, and it's what they've been teaching in the last 8 months or so since the dictation finished on the Book of Mastery, they've been teaching collective agreements and how we're all complicit in what we see before us.
Yeah, we're co-creating it all.
We're co-creating it all, but, this whole individual thing, like, well, I didn't make the war happen, we did. We're all in agreement to it because we can perceive it.
Exactly.
And if we can perceive anything, we're in energetic accord with it. And if we're in energetic accord, we can actually work towards transformation.
So this ability to really be in the beingness of our divine self comes through these attunements and other ways, other places too, I'm sure. But one of the pathways that the guides are offering us through your books that they're writing, as well as through the teachings that are coming through you from them, vibrationally, is what's allowing us to move into that with more ease.
Well, this is what they say. They say we're all radios. We're always in broadcast. Our broadcast is our consciousness. Our consciousness is informing the material realm because how we name things, how we decide upon things actually affirms them or transforms them, that we have much more power than we would say. What the guides say that they're doing with us is that they're attuning the radios that we are to be able to play the higher broadcast, which has always been there. So the music has always been playing. They're sort of supporting us in being able to play it as who and what we are.
And in doing that, because there is so much of a appearance, the illusion of suffering, the illusion of struggle, the illusion that life demands a sacrifice or that a creator demands a sacrifice. This transcends that, helps us to move beyond those corporate beliefs that we kind of hold.
Yeah, I would say so. I'm not, saying that life is easy, and I don't, necessarily easy or that it's all supposed to be fun. I think we come here to learn and there are challenges, but the guides, I think, are here to support us in bearing witness to something very different and at a higher level.
Well, they certainly do come across as very loving in the text and in the live stream channels that you offer. And when we return from our break, I want you to talk a little bit about how people can participate in your live streams and your workshops when we return. Great. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Everyone, please stay tuned for more. Thank you.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio. Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour.
Meet me in the marvelous St. Martin for an evolution into self-love and soulful living. Hi, I'm Bernadette Davies, founder of Agape Holistic Retreat in St. Martin and around the globe. We're an all-inclusive retreat in St. Martin and private retreats and around the globe. It's magical. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Attunement, enhancement, alignment. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Meet you in St. Martin.
Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour. As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Sylvia Henderson with Paul Selig on the air. So, Paul, can you share with everyone how they can participate in your live stream, find out more about you, and if you have some workshops that are coming up soon?
Sure. Well, my website is my name. It's paulselig.com, which is PaulSelig.com. I do live streams on Wednesday nights where I'm midway through a series now, but you can join at any time and you can come to one session or come to them all, and you can also download previous live streams on the website. The website has a lot of information. The live streams are actually an ongoing teaching. So every week they're teaching new stuff. I don't know what it's going to be. They'll usually have a theme, and then they'll do a 4 or 5 session class and then take a week off and then do it all over again with a different subject. So that's available to anyone who comes, and we actually send you the the audio and the video of these things after each class for those people who can't attend. They're held at 8 p.m. on Wednesday evenings, but you can watch them at any time at your leisure.
And that's Eastern time.
That's Eastern time. Thank you. The workshops are all over the country, and on my website there's a complete list. You can also just sign up for my mailing list, and you'll get a list once a month of where things are going to be. Upcoming workshops. This coming weekend, I'm going to be in Venice, California, in LA, for a book signing on Friday night. Saturday and Sunday, there's a workshop in LA in Topanga Canyon. Later this month, next month, I've got workshops in Des Moines and Portland, Oregon. In March, Annapolis, Maryland, I'll be at Esalen and at the Big Sur, for a weekend and a 5-day workshop. There's stuff coming up in Louisville, Kentucky, and Chicago, Crepallo, and Massachusetts. There are a lot of options, so I would love to see some people at a workshop if they feel moved to come.
And for those of you who have not yet had an opportunity to experience Paul, the guides working through Paul, I highly encourage the live stream, at least if going to a workshop is not really something that you can do because of your schedule or for cost reasons, because the live stream is very inexpensive, so it's very accessible, and you definitely do feel the energies coming through. I was really surprised to have that experience, and then later, as preparing for the interview, I found out that it's a very common experience. So one other thing I wanted to talk about real briefly before we went to the break, you were saying that, of course, life is not easy, and, this is a school.
Mm-hmm.
So the guides do say that the divine self is never persecuted. It really is that little egoic self, that conditioned personality. But they also speak to a coming revolution in consciousness on the planet. And so when I think about how that smaller self on an individual basis feels kind of always under attack, but yet there's this coming revolution in consciousness. Will there be is that a massive shift, do you think, that's going to happen? Or is it still going to be kind of more on a one-on-one basis?
Well, I just know what I'm told. My guides aren't all that big on little predictions. They do talk about this stuff. But they say every time one of us wakes up, we wake up 1,000 more just by our presence.
Wow.
This is happening at a level of vibration. So, a lot of this is about being in co-resonance. So as we shift our world. Now, I think that, some of what they've said is that some of the sort of craziness we see around us now is really a reaction to the fact that we're lifting. The vibration here is lifting, and people don't know what the hell to do with some of this stuff. And perhaps that's so. They also say that we're paving the way for what's to come, And they say that, we are at a time of enormous change. They used a metaphor in the last live stream, which I thought was interesting. they used the metaphor of a landslide, a boulder being dislodged and rolling down a hill, and they say, it makes a thunderous noise, perhaps when it rolls down the hill, but it's also exposing new earth. Whatever has been hidden underneath, it will now be revealed. So, this idea that the changes are all going to be graceful and easy, I don't know if that's going to happen here this time. And certainly, they don't predict doom and gloom, but they do say that we have a whole lot of say in how we learn our lessons. We have choice. And, if we want to learn the hard way, we can keep doing it. I think in the new book they say, you can learn to bake a cake in the gutter or in a fine kitchen. It's the same lesson. It's harder to do it in the gutter, so you learn in different ways.
Either way, the cake will get cooked.
Pretty much, yeah.
And the lesson really is that awakening to the truth, that we are divinity. Yeah. Gotcha.
I hear yes. That's the answer. That's the answer. Awakening to truth. They would say the truth of who and what you are and who everybody else is as well.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, I have a personal question. May I ask? Since I did kind of hear your guides coming in a little bit there.
They were popping in. Yeah,
they were popping in. So I have a personal question for myself. Since this isn't a call-in show, I can't have a guest call in and ask a question. And just so I have to say my backstory. I've had a lot of interesting things happen in my life, a lot of challenges that have held me back in doing the work I really love doing, which is working with clients and really helping people, raise their vibration, shift their judgments, lose those belief systems that are conditioned, that aren't reality. And so I'm just wondering if the guides can tell me, I know they're not into predictions, but am I at least on the right path for me to grow more into what I really love doing?
Well, I'm going to say to your listeners that when I channel, I whisper the words as they come and repeat them. And I may be doing this psychically, or I may be doing this channeling. They're two different things. But I'm going to tune into you first, of course. Well, they're actually saying, of course, why wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't you be in the doubt that you hold? And the doubt that you hold is just a residue. Is just a residue. They're still misbehaving. That you are still misbehaving. You think you misbehave. You think you misbehave when you claim authority. When you claim authority, that people slap your hands down. That somebody will slap your hands down if you reach to the shelf too high. If you reach to the shelf too high, why not have to reach so hard? Why not have to reach so hard? Ask to be lifted to the high shelf. Ask to be lifted to the high shelf. Then you can be receipt, and then you can be in receipt of what is rightfully yours. Of what is rightfully yours. This is true for all of you. This is true for all of you. You're all creating your lives. You are all creating your lives in an agreement with what you can hold. With what you can hold, you can hold vastly more. You can hold vastly more than you believe, but you must say you are willing to learn. But you must say you are willing to learn. Are you in the right place? Are you in the right place? You're in the only place you can. You are in the only place you can possibly be to learn what you're here for, to learn what you're here for. How else could you be? How else could you be but just where you are? But just where you are in order to learn what you may learn, who and what you may learn from the place you stand, period. And they're saying period.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Paul. That was such a blessing. Awesome. It's nice to get confirmation. Well, Paul, I have to say that this has just been a wonderful, wonderful time. And I have not yet even finished reading the book because I'm savoring every page as I go through it because of the attunement energy. I really want to drink it in and have it permeate every cell of who I am. And one thing also I wanted to ask you as we're coming up on the end of the show. So when do you get to begin on the second book? Is it when they feel that consciousness has finally absorbed what's come from here, or has this already started, this process?
No, they wanted it to start February 1st, which is next week, and it's not going to. And it's actually going to start, assuming, I keep thinking that it's not time yet, but they had said they wanted a book a year for 2 years, and then, a year and a half before the third book. They said they wanted to give me a little break. So Right now, I'm scheduled to start sessions on this in mid-February. Victoria Nelson's been on the phone for all of these books. She's been the active listener for the channeling, and we just made a schedule of sittings about a week ago, so this should be coming pretty soon.
Beautiful, beautiful. So that's something that we can all look forward to. That's very exciting. Mm-hmm. Paul Selig, thank you very much. I don't know how the weather is for you out there where you are. Are you in the middle of the snowstorm?
It's over now. It's very pretty and quiet here in New York City.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. For those of you who want to get Emmanuel Dager's book, you have the instructions. Like me on Facebook, send me a contact form, and we'll put your name in the drawing for that. And Paul Selig, thank you very, very much. We should be hearing the music any time now. I just want to let everyone know that next week's guest is Colleen Morrow. We're going to be talking about spiritual telepathy, and she's going to share some of her wisdom on some ancient techniques that will allow you to access the wisdom of your soul. I want to thank you all for being such beautiful listeners to the Intuitive Transformations radio show. And until we meet again next week, same time, same channel, take care of yourself. Know that you are very much loved and appreciated. And go out there and get Paul Selig's book, The Book of Mastery. It will change your life. Love to you all. Bye-bye for now.